Now that we've looked at some of the features and we've built a view for this particular set of data, we can look at how we can train the model and how we can test that model. So I'm back in BigQuery here, and you can see we have our bike trips data set, and our view is in there, and we also have our data. So creating a model is actually really remarkably simple in BigQuery. But before we do that, we want to actually change that view a little bit. Right now we have our start station name, our end station name, our start hour, our start day, our start month. I'm going to go ahead and add a year to this as well. And we want to do this not because we want to use this for prediction purposes, but because we want to use it for how we actually how we segment our data so that we can test a little bit. So I'm going to just call that year, and we're going to run this query again. And the nice thing about views is they replace very easily, So now if we want to see what that looks like, we could just create a new query and say select star from bike trips. We'll just limit it to 100. And now this is just getting the data, but we have that year, which is going to be nice when we want to actually segment. So I'm going to go ahead and close this one. We don't need this query anymore. We're going to create a new SQL editor here, and we're going to create our model. So to do that, we type create or replace. We often do this just so that if we've already created it once or we're iterating, create or replace is just a nice way to just replace it so that we don't have to run into errors or things like this. So model now instead of view, and we're going to give it a name. We'll say bike trips we'll call it trip duration model, and we will give some options. Those options will be, we're going to say our model type is going to be linear regression. And there are several options there, but linear regression is a pretty good place for us to start. Input label calls. This is going to tell us sort of what we're trying to predict, and we're going to use duration minutes for this value. And then we'll train this with data. We'll select star from bike trips where year is less than 2022. And that should do it. If I don't have any errors here, we should be able to build this model. And you can see it's going to take a couple of seconds, but a few seconds is actually a pretty remarkably fast time to take all of this data, query it, access it, and then train a model with it. So it'll take a little bit of time here, and we're going to, the training is occurring, and here we go. So a couple of seconds, sooner or later, pretty soon we should be able to get under bike trips. We'll see a model there. There we go. We've got a model. So trip duration model is there. We can look at some of its information. We can kind of, just some basics here. We're going to get into what all of these different values mean in future sessions. But now that we have this, we can actually test it pretty easily. All we have to do to test, test this model is we can we'll create a new editor, and we're going to say select star from ml.predict. So this is going to use our model, bike trips trip duration model, and then we're going to need a query here. So we'll get some data here. We're going to say select star from bike trips where year equals 2022. So this way we've trained our model on all of the data through 2021, and we're going to use this to train our model on the values in 2022. And let's say we could even limit this to 100 again, just so that we're not getting thousands and thousands and thousands of records. So now that we have this, we can kind of take a look at what this is saying. So what you'll actually see here is some pretty crazy predictions. Let's change the order here. We'll say select start. Let's change the order. We'll start with duration minutes so we can line this up nicely. Duration minutes, and say start hour, start day, start month, then start station name, end station name, and year. We'll get them all, but we'll just change the ordering, and then we'll hit enter. And you can kind of see here as we look into this column, let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger, And you can see some of these are just kind of wildly off. So duration minutes gives us our real value. This is what's recorded. And then the predicted duration gives us the prediction from our model. And some of these aren't so bad, but some of these are just sort of way off. Like 38 and 32, that's not a terribly crazy prediction. 43 and 41, not a terribly crazy prediction. So it's not super surprising that some of these are not good. This is not something, because we actually, as we were looking at our features, as we were starting to analyze this, we didn't really do things like eliminate the outliers, or at least account for the outliers. We didn't do things like trying to incorporate other data sources. We probably didn't even look at how much data we had for each one of these particular segments. Like, do we have a lot of data for this, from Hollow Creek, Barton Hills to South Congress? Like, I don't know if we had enough data for that or not. We didn't really spend that much time on those. And this is one of the reasons why our predictions are going to be a little bit crazy, because we don't know if we have enough data. We don't know if we've used the right sources of data. And we actually also have not eliminated a lot of the sort of outlier data here as well. So we can actually go back through this entire process. And one of the nice things about having a view is that we can keep this separate. So, let's say we wanted to do something where we eliminate outliers. Maybe our outliers are and duration minutes. Let's say is anywhere less than, let's say, 100 minutes we consider to be an outlier. So now we can run this and we get a new view that's going to be only data where the duration of those trips is less than 100 minutes. And since we have that, we can now run or create or replace this model again. So now all we have to do is replace this, and it's going to use that new view that we already have. So we don't have to think too much about how those data inputs are going to change there. So that's going to change our model, and we can go ahead and close this tab. But now when this is done, we can do the same kind of thing and see if we get better predictions this time. So still going, 18, 19, 20, 21. And, one of the other reasons why this might not be a great set of predictions is because we've kind of separated start station and end station names. So the start station is really, the trip here is the combination of start station and end station, not necessarily those two things separately. So, we might be looking at trying to create some particular magnitude or vector around just start station as opposed to that pairing of start station and end station. So it looks like we have our model ready. Now we can kind of run this and see if we get a different, and better set of results. And you can see here, some of these are still pretty far off. Some of these are better, but some of these are actually better. You can kind of see some of these results are a little bit better given these inputs. So this is part of the process of training your model and actually working with it. Now, the other thing that I might look at here is that for this particular type of model, there's actually going to be a lot of other information that we could incorporate. Things like, is the day a holiday? Or is there a special event? Are there sporting events or things like this happening? All of those could affect the data, but you might also question if there's really a machine learning problem here. This might just be a simple averages. In fact, if you took the average of all of the trips on the 1 week previous, so if you're traveling on a Saturday, if you took the average of all of the trips on the Saturday before this, between those two, between that start station and that end station, you might actually end up with better results than this model. So sometimes you do have to ask that question if you really have a machine learning problem here. But this will walk you through at least the steps of, we can kind of create a table or a view to view this. We can create a very quick query that just will create our model, and then we can test that really effectively. So hopefully this will get you started thinking about this, and hopefully it will be useful as you progress. And we're going to continue to explore different machine learning techniques and different things that we can do throughout the rest of this course. Thank you for watching.